Well, for more on finance, we're joined by Rod North, Executive Director at Bourse Communications. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just how much will it affect American share markets at this stage, two-day
Well, I think there's likely obviously to be a two-day break, and of course what's happening is that a lot of the major offices in the US are obviously able to redeploy either to home or to other offices. So obviously the financial world continues, even though the floor of the New York Stock Exchange isn't able to trade. I suppose the precedent, as you said, back to 2001, September 11, was that in that time frame 4 days it took, but there's only an expectation it'll take two. But what will happen is I think the rest of the world will sort of slow down, for a day or two. Obviously, people are concerned about what's happening. I thought, one of the sort of humorous things to come out of it, if there can be any humour at all, is that JP Morgan, the largest US bank, did say that it would waive late fees for anyone over the next few days. So I suppose at least the banks are doing something nice to help people, in this sort of crisis situation. But our market obviously will be, just treading water as other sort of international markets will, until we see, where all this sort of ends up in the next hour or so.
Let's come back home, and a Deputy Governor of the RBA is popping his head up today. Those tea leave watches will be out in force.
They certainly will be, just to see what sort of reaction we might get from any potential comments for the big D-Day next Tuesday, Melbourne Cup Day, to see whether the RBA actually does anything further with rates before the end of the year. I think there's still a sort of 60% chance that we could see another rate cut, and I suppose, if you're a benevolent RBA wanting to help retailers and get perhaps the economy sort of pumped a bit before the end of the year, probably that's the time to do it. Maybe a December cut might be a bit too late to help retailers. So there's still, I think, a 60% chance of one sort of further rate cut before the end of the year. So, a lot of people will be hoping that might be next week and bring the cash rate back to 3%, and people might get out and spend a bit.
What can we expect from the Commonwealth Bank's AGM today? Well,
I think probably another record profit. We're sort of coming off the back of the ANZ's profit from last week, and I think then the expectation is, well, if a lot of the banks continue to record these large profits, perhaps they won't have to blame the fact that cost of funding continues to rise, and maybe that next time round they might pass on the full amount of any rate cut the Reserve Bank might deliver.
Rod North, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, sexual harassment is still widespread in Australia.